Hey guys, this is Paco the Realtor, and I'm about to recap what really happened in 2023 and what they're already saying about 2024. And you guessed it, we're all gonna die. Hey guys, this is Paco the Realtor. Today I'm gonna talk to you about what happened in 23 in real estate and what potentially can happen in 2024. Before I get to all of the facts and the data and all of that stuff, there's a few things I want to point out. One of the things I want to point out is that fear is the biggest component of sales. If you don't believe me, look at the media. Good stories are rare. Bad stories are what sells. That's what people pay attention to, right? Social media is no different. If I was to Google in 2022, what was going to happen in 2023? The top 7 YouTube videos all had one thing in common. The real estate was going to crash. We were all going to go to shit in a handbasket, and we were all going to go bankrupt. Those were the top viewed videos. If I was to Google today, what happens in 2024, the top 10 videos right now are, guess what? We're all going to go to shit. The market's going to crash. We're all going to lose everything. I want to start by saying this. Do not believe the hype of fear. Fear is a marketing tool. More views, more clicks, more eyeballs. That does not equal truth. If they knew what was going to happen, they'd be billionaires and they wouldn't be doing YouTube videos. Now there's data we can all look into and interpret in different ways. I'm not here to say that real estate is always a good investment. I'm here just to talk about the basic principles and facts. So the basic principles and facts are the following. Let's talk with principles. 1, we all need to live somewhere. 2, we all have to house our family. We're either gonna pay rent to get that, or we're gonna pay a mortgage. We're gonna do one or the other. Now, there's people that believe that rent is better. And a lot of them, they're very savvy when it comes to investing. The difference between rent and the mortgage could be $1,500 a month. They can invest that over so many years and make more money doing that way than they would get in equity and paying down the loan. God bless them. That's 1% of this country. The rest of us are going to build and maintain our wealth in what? Real estate. That's just the reality. So when I hear billionaires saying none of us created our wealth via real estate, they're right, but we're not them. So I'm talking to the average American who still believes in the American dream. It's not dead. All they're doing is changing the message. If you don't believe me, think about this. 2023, over 30% of all homes that were purchased by hedge funds, corporations, entities. If the market was so bad, why are they buying? Because they've learned something over the last 20, 30, 40 years, which is what? Real estate creates equity long term. So why should you have the equity? They might as well have the equity and have you rent. So now they're trying to convince you that renting is the best thing in the world. In some situations, it is. If you can't afford to buy, you have to rent. That's just the reality. But if you think real estate is a bad investment, how many of you right now, if you could buy a house in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or early 2000s, would buy at that price? 90% of us, 95% of us would say absolutely. That would be like asking me if I was willing to buy Apple stock back in the 80s when it was really cheap. Of course I would. Real estate is still, in principle, the best way to create wealth and to generate wealth for you and your family. So I want to make sure that I'm coming from a position of this, not doom and gloom. If I knew what was going to happen, I'd be a millionaire, billionaire right now. I don't. All right. So let's get into the data. All right. So the experts said in 2022 that home values were going to go down because they were already too expensive. The rates were going to keep going up. We were going to suffer from low inventory, low sales volume. The market was going to crash, and foreclosures were going to skyrocket. That's what was told. What really happened was home values stayed steady or went up. There's some areas where home values went down, but in my area in Southern California, we did not see any loss of value. As a matter of fact, we saw a gain of 1-2% in equity. Okay, rates did go up. They went up to 8%, and then came back down, and now they're hovering between 6.5% and 7%, depending on who you are. We did have very low inventory. Everybody's interest rate locked. If I have a 3.5 and I need to sell my house and cash in the equity to buy a bigger home because I have a growing family, I'm not going to justify 3.5% interest rate to 8%. It's not going to happen. So I'm waiting for the right moment for the rates to come down, and then I'll pull the trigger. I'm interest rate locked, and a lot of that has been going on. That then created low inventory, created low sales volume. The reality is that the sales volume dropped off by over 50% in certain areas. And that's just because nobody was selling. The inventory that we normally use to sell so the new buyers could come in wasn't there. So we couldn't have the sales volume. So what happened was it caused all these home buyers to go where? To developers. To go to new developers and buy those homes because they were given incentives on credits for closing costs, interest rates, all of that stuff. So the buyers are still there. They just had to maneuver in different segments is what happened. There was no crash. Foreclosures are still below 1%. None of that happened. We didn't lose 10% in value in the area I'm in, with a lot of people expected. And another thing that happened that was interesting was that 3 years ago, first-time buyers made up less than 25% of the market. As a matter of fact, at that time, they were talking about how first-time buyers have no shot at buying a home. Today, it's over 60% of the market. So first-time buyers are taking advantage, even though they have higher rates and the homes are more expensive, that there's less competition, there's less people in the market because a lot of people were priced out. So though that is what was told to us, and that is actually what. Okay, so what are they saying? The rates are going to go down. With some of the announcement the Fed has said, we do expect rates to be going down. Probably by fourth quarter of next year, you'll start to see a real impact on it. We don't know where they're at. They've been going down for the last 60 days. It came up a little, but I think we are in agreement that rates are going to start coming down. The key is, at what point what does that rate have to hit for the market to open up again? I think it's going to be between 5.5% and 6%, which potentially is fourth quarter to 2025, but I can completely be wrong. More sales, yes, we're going to definitely have more inventory because rates are coming down. You are going to have more people that aren't going to be that were priced out get back in the market. I think a lot of people that needed to sell kind of sat pat. When there's fear in the market, everybody just kind of freezes and stays to see what's going to happen. I think they've come to a realization that this is what the market is, and so I think you're going to start seeing a lot more sales hit the market. According to California Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors, you potentially will see a home price drop of 3 to 5%. Not a massive drop, but an adjustment down. But here's the funny thing is, there's people on the opposite side saying, wait a minute, if all of a sudden all these homes hit the market because people want to cash in their equity, and the rates drop to where we expect them to be, then all these buyers are going to flood the market and it's going to drive home prices up. So there's actually a few pundits and experts out there that are saying home values are actually going to go up about 10% in 2024. There goes the difference. We don't know. I think it's going to be in the middle. Home value, YouTube says it's going to crash, as I already showed. I don't think there's going to be any kind of crash. We don't have enough inventory anymore. We don't have enough homes to support everybody. It's a completely different world now. I think what's going to happen is we'll see a slight adjustment, but there's going to be no crash. People have way too much equity. If my equity dropped 10% tomorrow, which is massive, by the way, I still have a fixed mortgage payment. I still have a crap load of equity. If I lost my job tomorrow and I had no way of paying my mortgage, I can sell my house and walk away with a ton of cash and go rent. It is a completely different world than it was in 2008. What we should believe. I think what we should believe is that rates are going to go down anywhere between 5.8 to 6.5 in that range. I think it's going to happen closer to the end of the year, but we shall see. I think that home prices are going to adjust down a little bit, if anything. I don't think we're going to skyrocket. If they do, they do, but I don't see it. And I think the biggest thing is there's going to be more inventory. I think that's the biggest thing I could tell you is there's going to be more options to buy. So there'll be more opportunity for buyers to come in. So I want to leave you with this. I started off by talking a little about how I think the principles are the same, but the message has changed. And I think there's a lot of people on social media saying that the principles are broken when it comes to real estate for a lot of reasons. But guess what? If social media was around in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it would be no different. It would be no different. Let me explain. In the 1960s, we had what? Civil rights, Cuban Missile Crisis, and the president was assassinated. Rates were in the 7%. Imagine living in a world, I wasn't born yet, where your president was assassinated and there's a potential nuclear war with Russia. How would the market respond to that? Via social media, right? It would be the world's about to end. Okay, in the 1970s, we had Watergate. So we had a president that was pretty much kicked out, and we had a Vietnam War. So we had an ugly war. And the rates were almost 13%, 12.9. Okay, in the 80s, we had the AIDS epidemic, the attempted assassination of the president, and the Iran hostages. And in the 1980s, the rates were about 18.4%, like a credit card. In the 1990s, we had the Gulf War and NAFTA. I remember NAFTA. We're going to lose all the jobs. We're all going to be unemployed. Rates were 6.91. In the 2000s, we had 9/11, Y2K, and the rates were 8%. So I just gave you every decade a reason why you shouldn't buy. Why there was something going on, some drama, something. You think none of us would go back to those times and buy? Of course we would. There's always something going on in the world. The only thing you can do is control you and your situation and what you want for your family and your future. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So take it with a grain of salt when people say the market's going to crash. Fear is such a powerful drug. And it's social media, I think, that's the part of the addiction to it, is that. We need to be conscious and not be scared. And at the end of the day, I'm always going to go by what my father told me. Real estate goes up and down, but long term you never lose. You can see it, you can touch it. You know what your rent is, you know what your mortgage is. It's the best way to have rent control, because your rent's never going to go up. It's guaranteed to get equity long term. It'll make more money than you will trying to save. Rents, as he told me, I've never had lower rents. They only go up. So, when you're thinking of 23, what happened in 2023, and going into 2024, and you're one of these individuals that are waiting for the right time to buy, my message is always the same. You buy when you can. You don't time the market. Is there certain times to buy better than others? Yes, of course. Just like there was a few years ago when the rates were 3% or 2.5% interest rate, right? Of course, that's an incentive. And right now rates are expensive and homes are expensive. But is it more expensive not to buy and keep renting and throwing all that money away? I think in Southern California it is. Rents are so damn expensive here, I don't see any benefit. But that's for you to decide. So, what is it you want to do? Do you want to listen to the fear and be a prisoner of what's going on in the world at this very moment? Or do you want to listen to the principles and know full well that in 20 years, the only regret you're going to have is that you didn't buy sooner. You decide.